Welcome back to another episode of the Easy Button Investor Podcast. I am here now, co-host Cole Ruud-Johnson. Sitting with me here is Tucker Merrihew, other co-host now. And if you guys are new to the show, you know that we've changed. Now that you're seeing the first few episodes, you go back before the past, call it 5 shows, you'll see bite-sized 8-minute episodes that are very tactical. We've pivoted the show this year, long form, got Tucker back on the mic out of podcast semi-retirement. And now we're going a little deeper into topics that we think will play a big role in what you guys do moving forward here in 2025. So today's topic is a fun one. I'm excited for. We're going through what the hell is wrong with real estate educators in our business and where the state of that is and what to look out for, what to do. So I'm excited, Tucker. I don't know about you. I think this is a topic that I know we talk a lot about. We're just shooting the shit, but I'm pumped to go through this stuff.
I mean, I've been talking shit about people for years in this space, and sometimes it's made me friends, sometimes it hasn't. But before we get into that, I think maybe I should take the title of co-host and you host. So that way, we have a little bit of hierarchy since you start off the episodes, right? So that makes sense.
Well, who knows? But that may or may not last. We'll see what the audience wants. I might be co-host.
You've gotten a lot better podcasting in the last year or so. That's for sure. So I wouldn't sell yourself short quite yet. This is an interesting topic. It's one that I started when I did my original podcast. I started doing a segment because it was a segmented show, and within the segments, I had it was like the no BS zone or no bullshit zone, basically. And I even had this little button that I'd hit and it'd say bullshit when you hit the button. But every week, we would see something that somebody claimed, generally an educator, right? I do this, I do that. Look at how great I am. And so I would call them out on the show and I'd say it. And I'd say 75% of the time when I called people out, as soon as the episode dropped, like I would get emails, Dan would get emails like, I can't believe that you said that about me. It really is true. I did what and every time I'd be like, prove it. And I'd never get any response back. Right. So it's, I don't know. It's an interesting topic, but we have more than our fair share of characters in the education space. And I think there's a lot of that, you can go into, like stocks, options, things like that. There's some real characters out there. I mean, really just in the influencer space in general, but our business seems to have the ability for people to make a lot more money selling education than they ever could doing real estate. So I think that's kind of the fuel that makes the fire burn really, really big. And when I say that, I mean, gets a lot of really, really big characters that get into our space. So I'll let you kick it off with kind of your take on the space now, and then maybe we can walk down memory road and talk about some of the characters that were in it previously too.
Well, I think through this a lot just because of the fact that a lot of the people I feel like that are getting into the space, there's usually 4 or 5 really loud people at any time. And those loud people are only around for 3 to 4 years. And I think what happens is, and I think what the cycle really is, I believe that real business experience grows a lot slower than you can grow your personal brand. And so you get these people that just massively accelerate their personal brand. They buy followers, they speak on podcasts, they pay to go on podcasts. They are very loud in your face and they gain audience. They gain $50,000 to $100,000 followers on Instagram. They start their own podcast. They're on Twitter, they're on LinkedIn, they're everywhere. And they're good marketers and they're good media personalities and they're loud and they're engaging. The issue is though that business experience lags so far behind. And I can speak for myself personally. Like if I could go back and after I did the Bigger Pocket show when I was 22, the first time ever, my DMs got flooded with people saying, hey, I'll pay you X amount of dollars to learn how to go find my own deals. And from some people, I took it and I did them a service. I did help them. But looking back now, even 5 years after that, what I knew then about business, I would feel like I would go back and tell myself probably not to take any of those calls because I hadn't learned a lot of the stuff that I was going to over the next 5 years. And I might feel the same way 5 years from now, right? So I think the reality is that I've realized is it just takes so long to get good at business to be able to give good advice to people. And that's the main issue is where I believe that the market gets really easy for a while. Interest rates come down. You get a bunch of very average people that real estate gets very easy. I mean, you can buy a house, do nothing to it, wait 6 months and make $100,000. And then people go, oh man, I'm hot shit. And they start selling a course and then that leads to selling a product. But the problem is they've never ran a product-led business And so they start all of a sudden when the real estate gets harder, their reputation just gets destroyed. And then the next part of the carousel is now they're selling e-commerce stores. Now they're selling NFTs and crypto. Now they're selling credit repair because they don't want to go back and do the hard work of building their skills. So that's the carousel and the roller coaster. And I've seen, and I think the biggest issue is every year there's this new cohort of a couple thousand people that want to buy education, and the loudest guys get those sales. Then those people end up with us, because once they get experience, they realize, oh crap, these guys don't know what they're doing. They're just loud. And then those guys fizzle out. So that to me is kind of the carousel that I see. But I've only been in this since into 2016, beginning of 2017. So I'm curious from your point of view, you've seen 2 or 3 more cycles of this play out than me. Has that always been the same way, or has it changed recently? Is it a little different than it was in early 2010, 2011?
It's basically the same. It just, I would say the ability for quote unquote real estate influencers to build their personal brand, the speed at which they can do that has increased dramatically, right? Because of technology and groups and, platforms and just the internet, right? And how we use it. And so, I remember, early 2000s when I first started sending like probate letters. There's a guy named Ron Mead. He actually lives in Oregon, where I'm from. And he had a simple product that he'd sell, which was literally like a bound book that you'd buy, and he'd mail it to you. They didn't even have like digital downloads, and it was just super simple. And he was around for a while, but because the internet wasn't such a thing, like being super flashy. Now, of course, there was what's that that little Asian guy back in the like 90s that had hot chicks, and he was always on a yacht, and he was a real estate guy. I think he got busted. Tommy something or other. We'll put it in the show notes. He was hilarious, but I think he got busted for major money issue stuff too. But so I guess to go back to your point, there's been decent people throughout time, but there's always been those like loud character types that, really all they are is a marketer, right? At the end of the day, they're not necessarily a real estate professional. They're just a marketer. That's why guys bleach their hair and have mohawks and do crazy stuff, right? It's to get your attention. It's not because they're cool, because most of them are not. That's what I discovered too from doing, the podcast tour for many years, and also having many of them on my show. I mean, I'd say there was 10% of them that are like decent, good people, and the rest of them are just either douchebags or just varying degrees of people that I would never want to hang out with, in my personal life. But that's just because that's what this business, it doesn't totally attract, but it does attract a lot of those people. And it's a fast money business. Just like, when you're interested in real estate and you reach out to try and get real estate education, you want to get good at real estate fast to make money fast. A lot of these people have been in real estate for a little while. They realize that maybe they're okay at it, but they're better at marketing. And so then they get into the fast money side of the business, which is selling you things or selling you the tools to go out and try and do real estate. And ultimately they're better at that than real estate the vast majority of the time.
Yeah. And I think the craziest part to me is the people that really get into the education space, typically speaking, to me, when I meet them in person, and I've gotten to know a lot of them, they care so much more about being famous. This is how I usually preface it. Like, and not all of them, I'm not saying this is true for all of them, but I feel like a lot of them were the most unpopular, nerdy kids in middle school and high school, and like had no friends and had their first kiss when they were 23 years old. And all of a sudden they get this little hit of like validation from the world when they start, talking about real estate online, and they get a taste of that. And then they just go, oh shit, I will say now whatever I can say to get more of that. And they get on this roller coaster. They don't even realize they're lying and stretching the truth farther and farther. I mean, I remember sitting at the first Maui mastermind that I went to way long ago, and one of the guys who's very known was presenting, and he was talking about how he was doing 300 flips a year and making no money from it. And someone leaned over to me and was like, "Hey, like that math just doesn't math. That does not add up. It doesn't pencil." And now, so young, I started realizing that the people in this game cared way more about this little, like, they just get together these little things and all just like kiss each other. It's so weird. And it gives me like, it makes me shake inside. And I've stopped going and doing a lot of that stuff just because it feels like a little kind of culty to me. But you guys, if you're listening to the show, the reason we're making this podcast, one, is to make fun of some people, because that's always fun to do. They
deserve it,
come back to earth. Yeah. But two is to get you guys to realize, like, these people will not be here long term. If you just stick to the actual business of this for 10, 15 years, you'll watch 2 or 3 cycles of these kind of people come and go. And I've already seen 1 or 2 of those. And last week, I made a video on this on Instagram. Last week, there's a guy named, he calls himself the Bull in Utah. It's Jeremiah. His name was like Jeremiah Evans, I think. I think that was his name. And he was a Mormon guy. Actually, one of our clients went to high school with him. Now that I found that out this week after I made that post. And he was selling e-commerce stores. He was talking about real estate stuff. He ran every year a big conference called AlphaCon in Utah. That's what he called it, AlphaCon. And there's pictures of him wearing like women's boots and tight jeans online. And he pled guilty last week, like $22 million of security fraud by selling these e-commerce stores as passive investments, and going to be going away from 16 to 20 years. And the feds don't play, they're not going to cut your sentence down. So you're going to see more of that happen. Like a lot of these guys, even the guys that raise money online and had no idea what they were doing, a lot of them are in terrible spots.
Oh yeah. A lot of the guys that got into the multifamily space to sell education and raise money and syndicate, because that became a hot topic too, or a hot segment of our market. But there's been a lot of guys that have been busted. I mean, God, it seems like every down cycle, somebody posts, whatever the charges are against a variety of these guys. And I mean, I'll tell you what though, the one thing that I found is I think Texas has the highest concentration of absolute characters for our space than any state. For whatever reason, something in the water there, but there are just some wily coyotes that are down there. And there's a couple guys that I know that I actually like a lot, but there's a lot of guys, and they'll admit it too. There's a lot of guys that are just straight up scam artists. I mean, just as scammy as they get. And, I keep hoping a lot of them get washed out, but some of them just hang on and they hang on and they hang on. And I just wonder who in the hell is giving them money. But then I remind myself, it's like, okay, well, they're marketers. They're not real estate people. And so they just try all these different gimmicks, whether it's, flashy cars, like, here's the truth, right? Like I drive a 2019 Toyota Tacoma. It's paid for. I could buy whatever car I want, but I like the truck. Drives well. AC works. Put my dog in the back. Put my tools in the back. But that's not. I can't take a picture of that.
Put your kids in the truck bed in the back.
Yeah, with duct tape them down to the the wheel wells so they as their seatbelts. Well, back in the 80s, you just ride in the back with nothing, right? So and we survived. But I'm not going to go post pictures of like, check out my 2019 Tacoma. Now come buy education from me, right? It's just not how it works. So like, that's why they have the Lambos or the flashy, Corvettes or whatever it is that they can get, right? To then use that as bait to kind of get your attention. They get your attention with that. Then they try and keep your attention with other things. Then ultimately they try and sell you stuff. And that's just, it's been the game forever. And I understand how it works. I could never get behind selling that way because I felt like it really diminished the value of what I really could offer in terms of truly being a real estate professional and not just being an internet marketer that can frame some good sales copy around, finding off-market real estate or something like that, right? Because those are two entirely different skill sets or two entirely different worlds. Now, they do collide if, you are selling education or you're training people or doing what we're doing. You have to let people know that you're doing that. So that's where kind of the sales copy and the actual, education that you'd be providing kind of meet. But I could just never sell the sizzle, we'll call it, right? Like that's the game when you're trying to get attention online.
Yeah. It's so cheesy. The Lambos, and to be honest with you guys, like a Lambo is not that expensive to go lease. Like if you're doing, even if these guys are selling 10 courses a month to people, like they can go lease a Lambo. Like it's not what most people think it is. But let me ask you this question. I think about this a lot because I do meet some people that do various forms of education and services. Right? We have a service business for real estate investors, and have different things that we do. What do you think of when you think of someone that does it the right way? And you meet them and they're not cheesy, they're not cornballs, they're not weirdos. They do it the right way. What is the right way to you to, I guess, brand yourself, as well as if you're going to do education, you're going to sell services. When you meet someone at an event and you leave and you go, man, that guy's doing it the right way. What is that right way to you?
To me, like I would always ask questions like about their actual sticks and bricks real estate business or experience or whatever it is, right? Like, and I fully understand that at a certain point, you're going to have a big education division or company it's very difficult to do both things at a high level. It's just it's tough. It pulls you in two different directions unless you have a team. And that's, part of the reason why we put together this program here, because I don't have to step away from my real estate business, which I love. And it's been, my baby for years and years and years, but it also allows me to coach and help and give my insight to others. But, when I talk to people, and it's pretty easy to be like, okay, they really have no idea what they're doing, or they're doing some low level flips and marginal acquisitions and questionable areas and things like that. It's like, okay, you probably have a ways to go still on your real estate journey to really be able to sell much other than how to find deals, right? Like that's really the limitation, which is fine. But, a lot of these guys, they walk around like they know everything about real estate, right? And they really don't. But I'd say the guys that do it the right way are people that kind of stay within the lane of what it is that they truly know. But they're also, trying to continually improve or climb the real estate ladder for their own real estate business, the sticks and brick side, and make it better and do things, improve it, right? Because if you haven't been in real estate long enough to, kind of have 3 or 4 or 5 different iterations of your own business to figure out the best way to do it, what makes you the happiest, what's the least amount of effort put in for the most amount of return at the end of the year, right? Like and I'm not saying you don't put a lot of effort, but like you got to look at that balance, right? Because you could run a massive wholesale operation where you're trying to do, hundreds and hundreds of deals a year, which, if guys do that, there's so much friction in that business. Just think of all the conversations that have to be had to get a deal, all the conversations that have to be had to kind of pursue, ink that deal, all the conversations that have to be had to then sell that deal. And then you've got all the other conversations every day that have to go on to continually fill that cycle. So it's like, that's a lot. And then if you step into the next iteration of the business, which is remaining, a big acquisition source for yourself, but then getting into doing 5, 6, 7, 10 rehabs at a time. Now you've got capital deployment all over the board. You're stressed to high hell. You've got debt service, out your ears. So there, and there's a time and place for all of that, depending on how ambitious you are. But I would say people that do it right have gone through multiple iterations of their own business. And truly that's the most value that somebody can give in the world of coaching. We can teach the technical stuff in terms of, this is how you market. This is how you, do lead intake. This is how you qualify people. This is how you follow. Like there's no magic to that. It's structured, skill set that you get better at with time. The real magic is, getting people to understand, where it is that they actually want to end up in real estate. Right. And then use those skills to help you get there. And so if people have been in long enough to have multiple iterations and truly have a business or a version of their real estate business that they think is the best version that they've had to date because of, their tweaks and changes over time, I would say those people are for real. And I have met a few of those people, for sure. And I definitely respect the hell out of them. And I wish them the best. And I hope they, do a lot of consulting and coaching and kind of, give them wisdom. But other people where every time I talk to them, and there's a lot of big names, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of big names when we go to conferences, because I know most of these guys, and I ask them what they're doing, and they'll have some random off the wall new market that they're doing some JV bullshit in with another guy. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's like what a first year real estate person idea is of like how we should run a business. Right. So when I talk to guys like that, I'm like, these guys are they're just there to put on the show.
Noobs. Even if they've been in it for 20 years, if they've never gone deep enough and they're still like, oh, I'm going to run this across 7 markets with 7 different operators and I'm going to go raise the money. They're going to do a bunch of flip. Like, to me, it's just like, and the thing I see always is, and I see this a lot because I haven't gone to a lot of conferences with you, and I'm sure it'd be the same. I've gone to a lot of conferences with James Daynard. And when he walks up to one of these real estate educators that says they're doing that, they do 300 deals a year.
He underwrites them like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not only that, but they shrivel up in the sense of like, those claims go away when you're talking face to face. They start asking for help. They go, oh, those numbers aren't real. It's because I also count my students' deals and I count these deals. And when you see these guys meet someone that actually does it, even without them saying anything, they shrivel into a ball because they know they can see the bullshit from a mile away. 99% of the guys you guys follow fall into that box. I think the fascinating thing for me is I've realized, because I was that guy, doing 12, 13, 14 wholesale deals a month for year after year after year. I think the thing I'm grateful for is it makes you get good at business because there's so much, again, to your point, there's so much brain damage in that business. But I think, I've realized for myself, like my dream my dream real estate business is, well, one, I'm the full-time, I run a lot of what we do on a day in and day out full time. But my dream is to do that and then use the cash that I generate to do 3 or 4 bigger deals a year here in San Diego or in Seattle that are larger spreads. Because to me, the real estate is a brutal business to make your active income in unless you're very, very, very clear on what exactly you're building. You don't build yourself a prison. But I want to circle back to the question I asked you of, who does it right? And to me, I know what someone's doing it right when, one, they can pay their bills the rest of their life without selling another course. And most people cannot do that. But if you meet someone and they genuinely can go pay their bills the rest of their life without selling another course, another event, another mastermind, that's someone who is in touch with their business and what they want enough to probably consult you on something. The second thing for me is I think they've been through a few cycles. They haven't been in this for 2 years, and they've seen interest rates low, they've seen interest rates high, and they can kind of advise on what's going to be the right thing to do in both those environments. Because what you guys don't want to do is build this awesome business that only works when interest rates are 3%. A lot of people did that, and a lot of them are now working part-time as bartenders and went back to their old careers, especially even loan officers that disappeared. And the third thing is, and I think the most important thing is just integrity. And when you have conversations with them, they've stuck with something for a long period of time. And the opportunity hopping is the number one flag to me that this person cannot choose who they are, what they do, what they're about. And that doesn't mean they just do wholesaling for 10 years. That means like they have been just doing deals, just cranking out deals for a long enough period of time and not jumping to different industries and different business models, because that's a signal they're just trying to sell you shit right off the bat. So that's kind of my take on what makes people successful. And I took it. I want to the back half, the last 5 minutes or so of this episode, I want to talk about what we're building at Easy Button Investor with our new client journey, how we're doing it different. And in your opinion, I guess the one thing I'll ask is, you've been on the sidelines, I would say, in the education space for a long time, in terms of you've done it for a long time, but I feel like you kind of got burnt out of the podcast education space because of the weirdos that were in it. And you just went back to building a bunch of houses, which I think is awesome. And we have kind of a reinvigorated vision on that. And a lot of that was prompted by you and your kind of re-excitement for it. What prompted that re-excitement, and what do you think that we're doing and are going to continue to do differently for people that, at least we believe is the right way to do it?
Good question. You're right. I kind of bowed out for a while. It wasn't because I didn't enjoy the coaching part, because I really did. I enjoyed a lot of the, virtually every person that I've coached or consulted with. They're awesome people. And because they're not influencer types. They're people that just genuinely want to get better at actual real estate, right? And I could help them do that for the most part. The challenge is that, with the education that we were, providing, the mastermind that, we've run for years and years, and then doing my own real estate business, we didn't have a big team. It was me and Dan for the most part, right? That ran the education side. And so it would be very difficult for me to grow it beyond what we did it at. And once I kind of came to that realization, it's like either I've got to hire a bunch of people to help us kind of build out the education side, or I just double down on my real estate business and just get better and better at that. Now, obviously, I moved all the way across the country as well, and I had to rebuild my real estate business from scratch, which I've now done, for the second time, or maybe it's the fourth or fifth iteration of the business, really over the time that I've been doing it. But what to do it with Easy Button and we have a team now. We have a team of quality people. We've gone through 4 or 5 different iterations of this business, right? In terms of lead generation, maybe more, maybe 10. But that's normal. That's what small business does, right? Ultimately you find the best version of what it is that you're trying to accomplish or do. And so by going through those different iterations, we've shed team members, we've added team members, we've kept team members along the way. And now I think we have the best version of the business in terms of the human capital that's part of it, right? And once I felt like that was stable and everybody's an A player, I felt that we had the ability to expand what it is that we can offer the marketplace and actually run a coaching consulting arm that does a really good job and delivers and has great customer service and has very competent people that are part of it. And that then allows me to step back into this space and do what I really love to do. I love coaching. I mean, I love real estate too. I love doing it every day, but coaching is something that I've always enjoyed, because I had people ask me, back in the day a number of years ago when I coached them one-on-one, like, why do you do this for, the money that you charge, you could obviously, your time's probably better spent just being in real estate. And I said, yeah, you're right. But real estate can be kind of a lonely business at times too. So I like talking to people. I like talking about other people's businesses. I like giving them advice. And to be totally honest, a lot of the people that I've coached over the years it's totally changed their life. And now they run these great real estate businesses like that. To me, it feels way better than building another house, to be totally honest.
I think I'll pass it back to you in a second. I think the tree that you've built, like a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of the bigger real estate influencers, I'd say in our space, the guys that are legit kind of came from your tree of education. And we don't got to go through all the names, but there's quite a few of them.
There's a lot. Yeah.
That came through your space. One that inspired them how to create their own group. But also like there's a lot of guys. There's Dave who's now building home. There's so many guys that I've met that have come. Even the guy I was talking to,
there's
Ryan's another one. A guy that I talked to yesterday that was on your podcast like 2 years ago. That's like, oh man, that show changed how I think about business. So to your point, there's a lot of those people out there.
Yeah, and they were all truly real estate operators, right? Now some have gotten into the the education space, and other of them have just stayed in their lanes. I mean, Justin Silverio, right? He came from that tree. Now he runs open letter marketing and Velo. And when I first started, having conversations with him and he joined our original mastermind, he was just a guy trying to figure out this world of real estate, right? So there's a lot of those guys, and a lot of those relationships are awesome. And that's why I like to get back into coaching, because you get to make a lot of those types of relationships. So I just want to differentiate, like coaching and meeting people and helping them, very different than just seeing the other kind of douchey influencer coaching people that are out there in the world, right? They're two entirely different people that I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I think the cool dynamic that we have at Easy Button, if you guys are listening, and I agree with everything Tucker said about how we're doing things. We've been a service business at Easy Button for a long time. And it's been myself running HelloPad, Tucker running his company, and then us running this lead generation service. And we've grown it for what it is as a lead generation service to a very big business, and a very good product. As I've stepped more and more into that, I think the dynamic that we have is I get to work with our team every day and build really cool products, and you get to be in the field every day building really cool houses. And I think that dynamic is going to allow us, and as you guys are listening, it's why I think we're there in terms of what we're providing for people, because you have someone full-time focused on both of the things that matter for you guys to get the most value you can out of spending money and learning more and engaging with new products to grow your business and lead flow and deal flow. So that is where we'll wrap the show today, you guys. Tucker and I are coming with one show a week now, very action-packed, very value-packed like today was. And like I always say, you guys, you are truly only one deal away from shifting your perspective. Even if you've done 100 deals, that next deal could be the one that sets you on the path to what your dream real estate business is. So wherever you follow us, guys, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, we're everywhere. Drop us a review. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Reach out to either of us on social media. Let us know if any topics you want us to talk about, anyone you want on the show. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, you're only one deal away.